Okay. Namaste, everyone. We will start with our Shanti mantra. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. So, last class we had this thing about internal sadhana, external sadhana, and all that. We saw about dharma. And I was answering a question about uparama, one of the qualities or the what is called as Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti, the sixfold inner wealth that comes as one of the four qualifications to study Vedanta. Viveka, Vairagya, Mumukshutva, and the Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti. So in that, there is one quality called Uparama. And in Tattva Bodha, the definition is Swadharma Anushtanameva, minding one's own business, basically, if you want to give it a modern way of presenting it. So based on that, a student had asked a question, is it the same as Vanaprastha? Yeah. Uparama is a it is a commitment to not get involved in things that are not my business. So Uparama can be developed in any stage of life. While Vanaprastha, Uparama is an inner asset. Okay. Vanaprastha is a way of life. It is an external thing. It is a ashrama. You have, for example, Brahmacharya, the student stage. Then the Grihastha, the householder. Then Vanaprastha, the recluse. And Sannyasa, the renunciate. Right? Student, householder, the recluse, renunciate. And Vanaprastha is a lifestyle that one adopts to oneself, which is a very good context for practicing Uparama, because the primary qualities of Vanaprastha are Vairagya and practice of Upasana Yoga. Practice of Yoga and Vairagya are the main things of Vanaprastha. It is a process of gradual withdrawal in terms of one's external way of life. So basically, the one who dwells in the forest, which means away from the society, not having an active role in society. Now, Uparama, on the other hand, is an inner quality that we develop in every stage of life. You can develop Uparama as a brahmachari. You can develop Uparama as a grihastha, as a householder. And of course, you will have all these qualities as a sannyasi. And so these inner assets of sense control, minding one's own business, these things, the endurance, titiksha, these things are exclusively reinforced and developed and perfected in Vanaprastha. So Vanaprastha provides a context to sharpen and perfect these inner assets. But it is not the same. Vanaprastha is a lifestyle, while Uparama is an inner commitment to not get involved in what does not concern my Purushartha and my Swadharma. Right? So that's how we understand it. While Vanaprastha can help develop Uparama, not only Uparama, Vanaprastha actually is the lifestyle adopted to strengthen all the fourfold qualifications for jnana. It is basically preparation for sannyasa. So it helps you to develop all Viveka, Vairagya, Mumukshutva, Samadhi, Shakka, Sampatti. It helps you to prepare for all of that. So, yeah. So that's how we can understand it. So continuing on our discussions, today I wanted to discuss about a certain force or certain qualities that we need to develop, certain competencies, certain spiritual competencies we need to develop in order to face the changing scenarios and the volatile scenarios in life. So these days, the one we are discussing now, yesterday, 2 days before onwards, there is this a lot of astrological anxiety, astrology created anxiety going on. There are 6 planets in the same house. So even I'm not an exception to that. So I was also looking at that to take precautions and all that. While we need to take precautions, the 6 planets in the Pisces and Saturn transit, and in the next month some other transit, and they are telling there is going to be a lot of problems in the world. And one day before the transit, we had a huge earthquake in Myanmar. So all this is there, and the astrologers are predicting more, difficult situations that might arise globally and also in individual lives. And the essence of this is, in situations like this, there is a lot of unpredictability and volatility, and there is a lot of vulnerability in the human condition. Vulnerability to what? There is a vulnerability at the social level, there is a vulnerability at the nature level, and at the vulnerability at the personal level. Like what we say, any problem that comes to us, the different kinds of problems, we generally categorize the problems in our Shastra into 3 categories. One is Adi Daivika, Adhyatmika, Adi Bhautika. So when we are talking about the planetary positions, they say it just to be considered as Adi Daivika. Okay, the things that are outside our realm of control, precipitating situations by forces that are outside our precipitation of situations by forces that are outside our realm of control, which we cannot rationally analyze or predict or understand or anything, right? So that is the Adi Daivika. Both like the earthquake is Adi Daivika. So here there are 2 things. Astrologers say that temporary planetary positions called Gochara is only 30%, 70% is one's own horoscope, your prarabdha and all that. All that aside, I want to focus on one thing. As an individual, what can I do from this, from this bouquet of spiritual knowledge and tools that we have in Vedanta, in yoga, in Tantra, in mantras and all that. From the Veda, we have so many, we have a bouquet of spiritual tools available with us, a lot of teachings available with us. So what can we do as an individual in these situations of volatility? One, life always is like a sine wave. Good times, normal, not a great, not so great time. This bland times, not bad. They say good times, not bad times, and bad times. It keeps on alternating, right? So, like how an ant gathers food in its nest during good weather, during summer and all that, it prepares it prepares its nest, it prepares the food storage, right? And also they say when you see a lot of ants migrating from one area to another area along with the eggs and along with the queen ant and all that, it means the rain is going to come. So it gets prepared for the rain, right? It works hard during the good times, and it keeps everything in place and safe for the difficult times, right? We also have that famous story about the grasshopper and the ant and all that. Similarly, during prosperous times, we save and have a backup for not so prosperous times. Right? This happens in normal our everyday life regarding artha, regarding our securities, regarding our wealth. We do that, right? And also, whenever we have some good time, we have to spend it on relaxation, rejuvenation, all that. We do that for the body. An intelligent person does that. So similarly, we can also develop a what I call as a spiritual account, right? Like how we have a bank account and we save during the good times, we save a portion of it in order to help us during the difficult times. Similarly, we can also have like a spiritual bank account and add value to that, increase our spiritual assets during the good times. So during the good times, do not indulge too much. If we indulge too much during the good times, we will have to suffer a lot during the bad times. So during the good times, what can we do to improve our spiritual bank account, right? So we can do this. One, what we call in traditionally as Anushtana Balam. Anushtana Balam means whenever you have good times going on, allot time every day to do a Anushtana. Anushtana means, I have talked about this many times. Anushtana means a regular, ritualistic, and a committed time for a dedicated, well-defined spiritual sadhana that is done according to the Shastra and according to the instruction of the Guru. Right? This is Anushtana. Anushtana means every day for example, every time I take a shower, I sit and do some pranayama, chant some shlokas, maybe do a little puja, and then I do some mantra chanting along with pranayama. I spend like 20 minutes. In that moment of freshness after the shower, let us say I spend around 20 minutes to half an hour to replenish my spiritual reserve, to replenish my prana, and to instill it's an energetically open time to cultivate and instill the good vibrations in my system. I use the time. And also to tune to the divine. Before my aura picks up all kinds of, when I take a shower, my aura is very open, vulnerable, right? It's clear from external influence. It's mostly personal. So I can increase the presence of the good vibrations in my aura immediately after shower. It's a very good time. That's why most of the Anushtanas, they will say, take a shower and after that do this, they will say, right? Also, immediately after waking up from sleep, I know I am awake, but I have not come in contact with the world. That's a very, very strategically extremely important time that we can absolutely capitalize to increase our inner asset. Where I plant a practice. The moment I wake up, I realize I am awake, but I am not in touch with the world yet. I'm not even in touch with my internal world yet. There may be some things, memories coming, some ideas about what to do in the day, some sankalpa, some intention to do things. I am not even participating in that yet. I've just realized I'm awake, I am, right? So in that moment, I can do a practice, a few conscious, deep, slow breathing, probably combined with remembering my mantra, remembering the Guru mantra, remembering my deity, and stay with that for some time. Take a few deep breaths, and then get out of the bed. Right? Also, they do this, they salute the Mother Earth, and then they get up. We have a lot of religious things, but basically there is a process of waking up into the day, and I can make it a conscious and a spiritually empowered process. The moment I realize I am awake, and before I come into contact with the world, I create a spiritual empowerment of my body, of my mind, and I plant a process there that will stay with me in the background throughout the day. Now, there is a saying, if something goes wrong in India, they say, I don't know whose face I looked at first after waking up, they will say. So that means it talks about the vulnerability of that state of mind after waking up. It's very impressionable and it's very vulnerable. So at that time, don't look at the phone. Now, the moment you wake up, they do this, they have the hand and they look at the hand. Karagre vasate Lakshmi kara madhye tu saraswati kara mule tu gauri cha prabhate kara darshanam darsha sloka. I visualize Durga, Lakshmi, and Saraswati in my hand, like that. There is one shloka. And also there is a Vedantic, there is Pradasmarami Hridi Samspuratatmatatvam Satchichukam Paramaham Sagatim Turiyam. There is a shloka, Pradasmarami shloka, remembering the true nature of yourself upon waking up. Like that, there are many, right? So in consultation with your teacher, with your guru, you can arrive at a process that you can plan the moment after you wake up, before coming in contact with the world. That is one. Immediately after shower, before doing anything else, and just before eating food, especially when you are hungry, you have that urge to eat. At that time, see if you can tune to the divine in some way from that point of that urge to eat. There is an urge and the desire to eat, right? At that time, see if you can tune to the divine. Can you tune that urge, that hungry you? Can you be in tune with the divine instead of being restless and to grab your food? That's what an animal does. But we have a choice there. An animal has no choice, Even a disciplined dog has it knows that it should not run until the master says go. It will not go and grab the biscuit. Even if you put the food on its that bowl, the dog will be waiting to say go, the right signal. The trained dogs are like that. So like that, we can train our mind. And eventually we create a samskara that every time I am in a prakrita, whenever I am in a naturally motivated urge for a situation, for an object, for an interaction, for an experience, whenever I experience an urge, a naturally created urge, I wouldn't even see an active desire, a simple natural urge at the body level. It comes from the prana. Excuse me. So when I have this natural urge, that is at the prana level, right? So what I have to do, I have to tune that prana, that vitality, that vital force in my body that pushes me towards eating or towards drinking. That urge to eat. Somebody presents a nice sweet in front of you, there is immediately a natural urge to enjoy it, right? So that urge for pleasure, fear of pain, these are all natural, what we call as prakrita, that the naturally pushed, natural push from inside. When you have those things and when you're feeling sleepy, all those moments, these are all hunger, thirst, sleep. These natural moments, what you can do is completely accept it. And from that, from the source, from the point from where the hunger arises, see if you can convert the hunger into a prayer or a gratitude or in any way, or into that, can that force chant your mantra? Remember the mantra. Can you develop a kind of a choice over that natural force that arises in us? So then what happens is we are creating a samskara, a very deeply embedded samskara. Whenever there is a natural urge, you plant a samskara generating spiritual process there. So all the natural urges, sexual urge, fear, sexual urge, hunger, thirst, emotional needs, missing someone, sorrow. When somebody passes away, there is you lose somebody from your life, somebody passed away, there is a huge emptiness, there is a sorrow. From the depth of that sorrow, completely accept, be with that, and from the depth of that missing, from that sorrow, from the depth of it, at the source of it, can you connect to the divine in some way, that emotionally. And then there is a thirst, and then there is this curiosity, there is this insatiable urge to know, I want to know, in that moment. So in anything that comes naturally, that comes forth from inside you and pushes you into some kind of an action, see if you can tune that force to the divine. And then from after tuning to the divine, can you pursue whatever is that urge? Like that. So we are creating a small comma and planting the divine there, and another comma, and then we proceed. So that we create a samskara over a natural urge, after a natural urge. So what happens is when you do that, we develop what is called as this is called anushtana balam. We develop a certain kind of a spiritual shield and armor. We develop a spiritual armor that is in your account. That is called, that's an asset. That's a spiritual asset. So we develop that thing that it's like an armor, and it protects us from being dragged into situations. It protects us from being helpless with respect to our inner urges. That is internally. Internally, we will be less helpless regarding our urges and compulsions and desires and fears. Externally, we will develop a kind of an invisible shield that will protect us from random situations. We will not be at the wrong place at the wrong time. We will not get dragged into what affects the collective masses. We will not be part of mass casualty. There will always be something a little better for us when compared to the rest of the crowd, in no matter what is the crisis, right? So you're creating a spiritual destiny. What happens when you create this Anushtana Balam? We get dragged, we get less dragged into accidents. There will be less accidents, and there will be more. So this is called as grace. This is called grace. The grace is earned by satkarma. Satkarma means good, conscious, spiritually empowered actions that we do like this. So that's called Anushtana Balam. Sitting practice every day. So that helps us to tune our subconscious, our sense faculties, tune our brain, our attitude, and all that to our guiding divinity or the Ishta Devata. And planting a spiritual process in the place of natural urges. At the moment when you experience natural urges to plant a spiritual process, it gives a certain kind of mastery over our pranamaya kosha, and to a certain extent manomaya kosha. Then what happens is that you are not pushed, you are not helpless with respect to the various things that happen to us internally without our will. Without our will, the mind asserts. Without our will, the emotions assert. Without our will, the urges come. Without our will, various stimulations around us elicit a response from us. There is very less, there is very less choice that we have with respect to certain things. Especially, for example, an exaggerated thing could be if any of us are experiencing an OCD phenomenon, right? Any OCD phenomenon. If you have OCD, it develops that disorder gets reinforced when we don't do anything about it, and when we are listening to the inner urge, this constantly washing hands, for example. There is this huge compulsion which comes as a reaction to either a realistic or an unrealistic perception of dirt, right? And then they want to go and wash the hands, right? So they touch something, some sensation. It's a projection. It doesn't actually affect you, but you think you are affected. Now, in those moments, one can work with it, like that. So if we don't, if we don't practice this, what happens is we become progressively more and more a slave of our prakriti. We become a prakrita purusha. In Chandogya Upanishad, it talks about Devayana, Pitrayana, and then it talks about the third path. One is the path of the rituals. You go to the world of the ancestors. Another is the path of yoga, where you go to the world of gods. And another at the time of death, when you don't have anything, you just completely in tune with, your so-called what they say, being natural and all that. So if you're completely natural, you're basically like an animal. So what happens is the reincarnation might probably drag you down to an animal life. It's a little rare, but a more, a lower form of life, especially when you are completely, when it is the reinforced, the slavery to the physical and the programmed nature in us. The slavery gets reinforced when we use alcohol and, this prana destroying drugs like smoking and indiscriminate meat-based junk foods. When all this is there, what happens? The apana, the force of apana becomes more, and the mind comes under the control of prana, which comes under the control of natural forces and the environmental forces. First, your prana comes under the control of environmental and natural forces, and the mind is already under the control of prana, because prana is the master of the mind for all practical purposes, and you don't have a samskara to deal with it. probably when it is not very overwhelming, when it is you create a comfort zone and you go into a kind of a sleep with respect to that. Comfort is nothing but sleep. Then what happens? It's like a spiritual fall. It goes down the spiral of indulgence and helplessness and randomness, and you get dragged into the various currents of Prakriti. It is like, I don't know swimming. I just know how to float, probably. Even I don't know that. Let us say sometimes I'm able to float. I have something to hold on to. I'm able to float. But I don't know swimming. I have no way to fight the current. I just get carried away by the current. We become like a dry leaf in the wind. You can just get your mind, your ego, your sense of self gets pulled into everything and then gets fragmented, and we become progressively more and more unconscious, which leads to the lower forms of life where the buddhi is not very prominent. So from human life, it is possible to go into insects and animals and other forms of life. There is a discussion about this. So basically, the ritualistic life that leads to the world of ancestors, the yogic life that leads to the world of gods. From this, what we can understand as a very basic concept is, the more I pursue a purushartha consciously, the more I develop consciously the samskaras, the more mastery I have over the natural condition, the human condition, over the natural processes. And the less I get dragged into the currents of nature, the more I am able to gain myself as an individual. And eventually it comes to a point where I am able to inquire into the true nature of this individuality itself and liberate myself from this illusion called individuality and wake up to my true nature, which is the cosmic truth about myself as Brahman, right? So this is the process. So developing Anushtana Balam, that's what we talked about. Regular, strategically planted spiritual processes and practices throughout your day, and a dedicated time of practice of uh, pranayama, japa, etc., and contemplation, etc., that reinforces your ability to concentrate your mind and your energies and to exercise a choice over the natural movement of the mind, and to develop a certain, and to develop the force of divine grace in us, right? This is Anushtana Balam. And we need another kind of strength, what I could call it as Nirodha Balam. Okay? The strength of Nirodha. You can call it as Nirodha Samskara also. One Shankaracharya ji, he calls it Nirodha Samskara. In one of the books by Sri Shingeri Acharya, he mentions this Nirodha Samskara. In Yoga Sutra also, it says, Nirvikalpa Samadhi is attained by the samskara or the ability that comes as a result of practicing non-involvement or desirelessness. Virama pratyaya abhyasa purvaha says. So this Nirodha Samskara is one of the very easy ways to develop, various ways to develop that. But one of the easiest ways to develop that is by practicing Sakshi Bhava. Sakshi Bhava means the attitude of a witness. Okay, I am only the witness. It is different. It is a practice of the buddhi. Sakshi Bhava is not enlightenment. Sakshi Bhava is a certain orientation of it's an orientation of my attitude. It's a practicing of an attitude at the ego level, at the buddhi level. Okay. So it is very different from when we study in Vedanta. Atma is Sakshi is different. That is knowledge. Understanding yourself as a Sakshi means understanding yourself as not part of any of the structures. That is an understanding. That is wisdom. That is knowledge. So I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about I am the Sakshi knowledge. I am talking about practicing of Sakshi Bhava, the attitude of being a witness, developing that attitude towards external situation. We can start from outside, and towards my reactions to natural reactions to external situations, towards my physical urges, towards my emotional movements, towards my sensory cravings, towards my attitudes, my other conflicting attitudes, towards my various attitudes, functional attitudes, developing the attitude of witness towards my various functional attitudes that push me into action. I feel I should do something about it. It feels so right. I should do this, we say, especially when we see a meaningful thing that we feel this is meaningful to do. This is the right thing to do in those situations. I know this is the right thing to do. There is a huge compulsion to act on it, right? Now that is also a movement of my intellect, of my ego, my buddhi. Can I witness that sensation, that urge, that intention, arising of that intention to act, no matter how justified and meaningful and correct and right it is? I'm witnessing that. I'm recognizing it, but I don't act on it. I don't participate in it. I recognize a movement in my body, in my urges, in my sensations, in my mind, in my emotions, in my attitude, no matter in what level. I recognize a movement. I recognize an intention. And I invoke this witnessing attitude. I am only a witness to this. I wait for it to arise. It stays, it hangs on for some time. There is some agitation. I don't do anything about it. I am aware of it. I witness it. I stick to my witnessing attitude. Then it goes down and fades away. Then something else comes up. Same thing. It goes on and on and on. Right? A kind of this they practice in Vipassana. In Vipassana, the Buddhist meditation, it basically comes from the same tradition. They say that Buddha revived it from the Sankhya tradition and gave it. So in Vipassana, they do this, they witness the various sensations in the body, Kaya Anupashyana, then they witness the various sensory experiences, Vedana Anupashyana, then they witness the thoughts and movements of the mind, Chitta Anupashyana, they witness the movement of the ego, Dharma Anupashyana, right? So we have this Kaya Anupashyana, Vedana Anupashyana, Chitta Anupashyana, Dharma Anupashyana, Vipassana. So this is what they do in Vipassana. The popular Vipassana, they do only Kaya Anupashyana. It's okay. But this is an ancient practice. It's Sakshi, basically it's Sakshi Bhava. Sakshi Bhava is where I don't indulge in any suggestion that arises in my system that pushes me to act on something. This is the essence. I have to arrive at that. To be able to arrive at the point where my intention to act arises, my intention to act on something comes up as a response to an experience, as a response to a physical experience, or as a response to the memory. When we are simply staying quiet, some memory comes, and if that memory is an uncomfortable memory, I can feel myself biting my teeth or reacting to that, or my eyeballs moving when I'm thinking, when I'm acting to that in my mind. That is, I'm giving a response to that. The moment I remember a difficult situation, I respond to that with some kind of a tension, with kind of effort. If I remember a nice joke, I respond to that with an involuntary smile. Suddenly you'll see a person sitting and they'll be laughing about. They remembered a joke probably. Or suddenly there is a smile. They remember a nice moment that happened to them. Then there is a smile coming up, right? Something reminds them of something. Then there is a smile coming up, right? So now these are all responses that come from us naturally to various kind of external or internal stimuli. Now I have a choice. When a response comes, I can get involved in the response and be part of the and I can become the responding self. I have a choice of becoming the responding self. I can respond, or I can recognize the presence of this natural response coming up and invoke my witnessing attitude and stay with it and not act on it. I am not suppressing it. I am not indulging in it. I am not avoiding it. I am neither suppressing it, nor indulging in it, nor avoiding it. I am just witnessing it. I develop an attitude of witnessing it. See, J. Krishnamurti ji used to talk about this a lot of times. It's a fantastic practice. So when I practice this, always bring up the witnessing attitude, stay in it for a couple of seconds, make it a habit. And then if something needs to be attended to, you attend. right? And especially in things which are not urgent, when we don't have an urgent situation, we can practice this witnessing attitude for a longer time before acting, especially with respect to emotions, with respect to um, both righteous and unrighteous intentions. In fact, when I know I want to do something which I clearly ethically understand is wrong, it is easier to bring the witnessing attitude and watch that and not indulge in that. It's easier. But when I know that this is righteous and this is good, and when I'm convinced that this is right, this is not wrong, it is absolutely okay to do that, to bring up the witnessing attitude towards that and not be part of that and not to act on it, that's very difficult. Because when you are empowered by the sense of right, the push to act is much, much greater than when you are empowered, when you're empowered by the discrimination that says this is wrong. That time withdrawal is easy because your ego is helping you. Your, what you call as the super ego in psychology, this your conscience is already creating a restraining force. So it becomes easy to withdraw yourself. What I'm trying to tell is you neither indulge in, then you're trying to suppress it, then you're trying to avoid it, divert your attention, all that. Don't do that. Neither divert your attention, nor suppress what is happening from you naturally, nor indulge in it and participate in it. That's where you create this attitude of I am the witness only. Just an attitude. It's like, for example, we say, when we are in a situation, we see something happening in front of us and we know that we should not do anything about it. And what do we say? It's very difficult. We don't want to be part of it. For example, what do we say? It's not my problem. We say, no, it's not my problem. That's an attitude. It's not my problem is an attitude. You can see that in cities. Somebody is, gets a sunstroke and falls in the middle of the road. You see hundreds of people just walking by in that city center. Everybody minding their own business. It's not my problem attitude. It's manifesting in an unhealthy way, in an unhealthy context. But this is what I mean by background attitude. It's a background attitude. We can have a healthy background attitude or we can have an unhealthy background attitude. Similarly, we can have this I am the witness only as a background attitude in various situations. We can bring it up and we can practice that. The more we practice that, what happens? We develop what is called Nirodha Samskara. In the sense, a kind of a power that allows you to not be pulled into action by any movement of mind. This is extremely useful in volatile situations. Whenever these uncertain planetary situations or chaotic situations outside, chaotic situations inside, all I have to do is awaken the witnessing attitude, stay in it, wait for the storm to pass. Very simple. But it does not come without discipline and practice and commitment to witnessing attitude. They tell this for stock market enthusiasts. There's people who are all the time in the looking at the market and doing something or the other, losing money, gaining money, then losing more money. What do they tell? All the pundits tell you, stay the course, don't do short selling, focus on long-term investments, diversify. And the rule is whenever the stock market is volatile, just stay quiet, be patient. Don't react to market fluctuations. It's something that I keep seeing from the stock market advice people, all of them, right? Starting from Warren Buffett, everybody tells that. That's what they used to, all these people who have what they call as strong fundamentals. This is what they say. Don't react to market volatility. It's something they say, but it's so difficult to practice. There is this analysis because, this news, election is coming. There is an election. The result is going to come tomorrow. Before the result comes, your mind needs entertainment. So you have this online debate and everybody debating this will happen, that will happen, this exit polls and whatnot, in all this chaos. It's for entertainment. It's basically useless, right? So based on these exit polls and predictions, the stock market will go up and down. Then what happens? We keep on getting excited. Then when we allow ourselves to get excited about by all these volatility around us, we increase our level of helplessness and we get sucked into more randomness. And then we are at the mercy of randomness. We are completely at the mercy of the external variables and the random variables, and we are completely at the mercy of the situation, right? So when we learn to practice this witnessing attitude in not so very difficult situations, the simple thing, I am thirsty, I am drinking water. Watch that. Like I told you, right? You can tune that. From the thirst, you can tune to the divine. That is one practice. Another, you can witness the thirst. I want to drink water. Have a water. Urge to drink. Witness that rush. Bring up the witnessing attitude. Look at the rush. That rush will become a little less. And then you drink water consciously, slowly. That's one practice, right? Similarly, eating. So when I was in school, we are always, in Indian middle class, we are always rushed, eat fast, eat fast, eat fast. That's one big problem we have in India. Till today, it is difficult for me to eat slow because of that. So every time I have to practice consciously. Otherwise, if they let the system naturally, it will eat fast, right? So I have some students around me, they will always be sitting next to me, making me eat slow. It's very nice, it's nice to have them keep reminding me. So I had to practice it consciously. And if there is no rush or no situations, then it's easy to, watch the rush come down. Because of the yoga practice, it's much easier than for a normal person, for me, easier for me than for a normal person, probably. So each one of us will experience some kind of helplessness or some kind of an extra rush to certain stimuli or certain situations. In those situations, we can practice Sakshibhava when it is not overwhelming. So during the good times, when things are not overwhelming, practice Anushtana, practice Sakshibhava. Create Anushtana Balam, create that Nirodha Balam, right? Ability to stay as a witness and resist the inner temptations and the push to act. And learning to be in tune with the divine no matter what is the situation. Being in tune with the divine across all situations, practicing the witnessing attitude no matter what is the compulsion in a situation. Across all kinds of stimuli, positive, negative, strong, weak, simple, ordinary, any situation, practicing the witnessing attitude, tuning to the divine in any kind of inner compulsion, tuning all your inner compulsions to the divine. So witnessing attitude is a little subtler. Tuning to the divine is easier. So if you are a very action-oriented person, you can dedicate more time to tuning your urges and your, the various active self that you have, active versions of your individuality. You can tune all the active versions of your individuality to the divine. That's an easier practice, and that is made easier by everyday dedicated practice time, the Anushtana Balam. And then you have a Nirodha Balam, which you create. Once you develop some level of sattva, practicing the witnessing attitude gets easier. If you find practicing the witnessing attitude very difficult, that means you will have to focus more on Anushtana. If you are able to practice more witnessing attitude, then you can dedicate more to the witnessing attitude and you don't have to focus so much on Anushtana, right? Just keep it to that everyday practice of japa and all those things. Swadhyaya, what is called. Japa study and worship of the deity, things like that. You keep it to a certain maintenance dose and practice more Sakshibhava. Right? So depending on your level of sattva, you can decide which one to prioritize at what time. Right? It's an art that you will develop. So these two things, Anushtana Balam, Nirodha Balam. Tuning to the divine and increasing your storage of the force of grace that protects you, the protective grace, increasing your protective grace account, increasing the your deposit of the protective grace account, and increasing your ability to be the witness, stay in the witnessing attitude and not to be pulled into situations, both external and internal. These two practices are very, very helpful. If you do this, you don't need to do any prayaschitta. You have this astrology world constantly selling you prayaschitta. Go to this temple, do for Rahu, go to this temple. If there is a Rahu moving, then everybody is in Trinageshwara. If there is a Shanishwara moving, everybody is in Trinalar. Then if there is some other thing moving, you are in Kalahasti. You have all these various temples where you go for Pariharam. You have, the main deity is forgotten now. Everybody is doing for all the Upadevatas a lot of practices. a lot of pujas and satiating the deities and doing pariharas. It's a huge industry. But once you have come to yoga and Vedanta, it is better to focus on Anushtana Balam and Nirodha Balam instead of all these pariharams. These are two aspects of Chitta Shuddhi, what we call as purity of mind. These two are certain definite assets which are part of this whole package called Chitta Shuddhi, or mental purity, or a spiritually empowered mind, right? Why? Because when you see in that text called Sadhana Panchakam, one of my favorite text of Sri Adi Shankaracharya, he says, Vedo nityam adiyatam taduditam karma swanushtiyatam cheneshasya vidiyatam apachitihi kamye matistyajyatam. Chant Veda daily, do the rituals, come, live study the Veda, do all the rituals, or practice, have a religious life, and whatever religious actions you are doing, spiritual actions you are doing, dedicated to the Lord. Don't take credit for things. Don't own up. Don't get egoistic about it. All that is there. And then he says, very important, because once you get spiritual knowledge, you have tools. You have tools which you can use to manipulate situations. Pray for a child, pray for a better job, pray for having a good relationship, pray for this, pray for that. These are all called kamya karma. Using spiritual techniques or magic, let's say magic. Using spiritual techniques for materialistic everyday situations, to influence situations, to make situations better for us in a specific way. Generally, praying for peace of mind and generally praying for vairagya, viveka is different. So that is called doing spiritual practice for the sake of purity of mind. So that doesn't, this Anushtana Balam doesn't come under that. So Kamye Matistajyata means give up that tendency to pray for getting things done. Immediately after telling all this, the very next instruction is Kamye Matistajyata. Then what happens? He says, by living a spiritually empowered life and developing a spiritually empowered mind, you are able to overcome the influence of your negative karmas from pushing you, which is what we discussed right now. Other words for putting it. And then you are able to develop that realistic vision of the limitations of worldly life. You are able to develop that insight into the limitations of worldly life. Your worldly life includes heaven also. You are able to bhavasuke doshaha anusandhiyatam. You will develop the ability to see the defect in temporary time-bound experiences, trying to attain, acquire, and sustain and prolong time-bound experiences based on desire. You are able to see the inherent limitation in that way of living. In that way of living a life dedicated to mediated joy or happiness. Mediated happiness means happiness that is dependent on situations and things, right? So you're able to see the inherent defect in that, and you are able to develop viveka, vairagya, etc. Right? So this is the thing. But before all that, so a person dedicated to this process, the first thing you do is you don't pray for influencing situations. No matter which planet is where, you don't have to do any pariharam if you are a yogi. If you are a Vedanti, you don't have to do any pariharam because you are devoted to Chitta Shuddhi. No situation matters. No situation is a problem. All situations belong to the body and mind. All situations come and go as fast as they come. So don't worry about it. Don't try to influence situations. Don't worry about planets. Focus on Anushtana Balam. Earn a generic, increase your account of generic grace, and increase your ability to stay in the witnessing attitude. When you practice these two things, like what in Tevaram we say, Asara nalla nalla, avinalla nalla, adiyar avarkku migave. Those who are devoted to this, to the Lord through this process of yoga, for them, all the 9 planets will not bother them. So I felt that in this situation, with all this planetary volatility and all the discussions going on about it, and all the clamoring for prashchitta karma, with all these, this transits going on, I thought it is a good opportunity to reconnect ourselves to this fundamental principle of our sadhana. Yeah. So with that, I will finish the discourse and I will open the floor for any questions, if at all. There are no exceptions to this rule. Like Patanjali says for yama niyama, at all situations, at all times, like that. This attitude of kamye matistyajatam, keeping away from specific situation manipulating, planets manipulating, astral forces manipulating, desire pushed personally with personal motive directed spiritual using of spiritual tools, completely given up. Just you give up, don't do it. That's all. No matter what is the situation, especially in difficult situations, that is an excellent opportunity. Any difficult situation, take it as an excellent opportunity to practice kamye matistyajatam. That's about it. And this is how we develop vairagya. There is no other way. If that it is only in difficult situations, if we don't use the difficult situations for our chitta shuddhi, then we are wasting the life. We are the best way to use a difficult situation is to use it for chitta shuddhi, and that is the approach of yoga. And if not now, then when? So that is the question we have to ask. So we have a fantastic situation with all this planetary volatility, and this is when you manage your anxiety through anushtana balam and nirodha samskara, witnessing attitude. Yeah. Right. So looks like there are no questions. So I will complete the class with our Purnamadaha chanting. Right? Think about it. Maybe watch this again and see what we can. And if any questions arise during the application of it, you can bring those questions in the next class. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavadishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sate. Thank you.
Nandri, thank you.
I don't know how to cut the call now.